What's going on, you guys? My name is Ian Richardson, and in this video, I'm going to be talking to you about a skill that has changed my life for the better. But before we get going, you're probably wondering, why am I sitting next to a Christmas tree? It is January 11th, and I have not gotten around to taking this thing down yet. And now that I'm sitting next to it, I think the big reason is just, it makes me happy. In a world where things are crazy, it is, it's nice. It's very nice. Anyways, if I had to attribute one skill to a large portion of my career success and growth thus far, it would be my ability to code. But before you click away, I know what you're thinking.
Ian, I work as a marketer. Why do I need to learn how to code?
Or, Ian, I work in construction. I'm not even in front of a desk every day or a computer. How is it still going to help me?
And those are valid concerns. A lot of people think that if you write code, you end up becoming a software developer. And I'm here to tell you that that's not the case, and I'm proof of it. So let me just say this. In my short 7-year career, so far I've never worked as a software developer or engineer, and I've never had coding be a core competency or function of my role. But with that being said, there's seldom been a week where I didn't use this skill. And in return, it's set me apart from my peers by helping parts of my job, and also by allowing me to adapt to challenges that wouldn't be possible or practical without writing code. It's improved my critical thinking and problem-solving ability, future-proofed my resume, and even helped me in my personal life solve issues that I never would have anticipated. But don't just take it from me. The World Economic Forum put out an article about the top 10 skills of tomorrow. And in that list, they included analytical thinking and innovation, active learning and learning strategies, complex problem solving, critical thinking and analysis, creativity and originality, initiative, technology use, technology design, and programming. All of which, in my eyes, are skills that you learn when you learn to code. And if I haven't convinced you yet, let me give you a list of a few people in our world that are influential and at one point in time wrote code. Number 1, Bill Gates with Microsoft, which is I think a given. Mark Zuckerberg with Facebook, Elon Musk, and not with Tesla, not with SpaceX, which I think he's most known for today, but his first company, Zip2, he was the original developer of that product and had a large exit with his brother, Kimball Musk. Larry Page, Sergey Brin of Google, Larry Ellison of Oracle, Jack Dorsey of Twitter, and Kevin Systrom. Kevin Systrom. I'm sure you probably don't know who that is, but he was the co-founder of Instagram. And the reason I brought him up and I wanted to add him as a part of this is that Kevin never really went to university or school or formal education for software engineering. In fact, before he founded Instagram, he was a marketer. And he actually really brushed up on his skills in programming after he would work at this startup. And that was what helped him found the company Instagram, which of course was a massive success, selling to Facebook for $1 billion. So one last thing before jumping into a project that I recently completed that I think will show you the utility of coding. And this is kind of more for my personal life. But recently I read an article called 6 Reasons Why You'll Never Learn to Code.
Ian, come on, man. You're already telling me I'm going to fail?
No, and in fact, this article actually gives great tips on how you can go tackle coding and make sure if you intend to get there that you actually do, and don't get led astray or discouraged too early if this is a journey you want to go down. So let me read off these 6 real quick. The first one is you're not making a real project. The second one, you don't understand problem solving. The third, process makes perfect and you don't have a process. The fourth, you think that you need to know everything. Fifth, you think using Google is cheating. 6, you don't surround yourself with other brilliant coders. Now let me boil down some of these for you. The first one, if any of these you take away from, it's the first one. A lot of people will go take a 101 course in coding. They'll learn Python in 4 hours. They'll use a bunch of really obscure examples that will showcase the features and functions of this technology and this coding language. And when they walk away, they forget all of it. And the reason is that when you're coding, if you don't really understand the context of what you're building, it's going to be really hard to apply that in the future. So what I would recommend to you too is to pick a project that you can wrap yourself around that might just be a bit outside of the reach of what you're able to do, but pick it so that it keeps you passionate about the project. It keeps things in context. You understand the utility of what you're learning and how it can be applied. Because without that, you're just going to be lost, or you're going to get discouraged and you're not going to stick with it. The second one, you don't understand problem solving. Now, this one is very much true to me. When I first got into coding, I didn't really think about how you break problems into bite-sized pieces. And that's really the way that you go about building software, is you break these things into small pieces that are reusable. And they're basically like Legos that you can plug into other aspects of software. And I'll show this a bit later in an example. Process makes perfect, and you don't understand process or have a process. Now, what this really means is there's a lot of tedious aspects to coding that if you don't build a process around, you're going to forget, and then you're going to be asking yourself how to do the simple things time and time again. So making sure you have a process around it when you do it is a good idea. Number 4 and 5, you don't need to know everything and you think using Google is cheating. And even 6, you don't surround yourself with other brilliant coders. One of the things that I love about the software development community and the people that write code is that everyone is very much part of the open source ethos. And what that means is that people are willing to help you, they're willing to share their code. GitHub is basically a public repo for you to be able to read code and be able to learn from it or pull from it or leverage it. Pretty much anytime I'm writing code, I have Google up and I'm literally every 5 minutes searching something and getting some information from some guy on some other corner of the internet from Stack Overflow on how to do a very obscure thing in Python. And all of that is great. And it's going to be a way that you'll naturally pick stuff up and learn. And whenever you get completely stuck on something, that's the huge benefit of this skill, is that there are millions of other people smarter than you and smarter than all of us, frankly, that have run into that problem, and it will allow you to be able to get through it quickly. So in this video, I'm going to be showing you guys a project that I built over this past weekend to solve a problem in my personal life and really kick off that first item, you're not making a real project, which I think is such a pitfall that most people fall into when they're learning how to code, is that they're not building something real. So with that, let's go jump over to the computer. Given the situation with the pandemic currently in Boston, the gyms are now closed. And in my building, the only way they were able to get around that is that they were basically allowing people to schedule blocks of an hour. These were getting booked literally at midnight every day. So, and we've been trying to go to bed earlier and take our health seriously and make sure that we're getting to the gym. But it just felt like we couldn't get all of those things to happen. I know I'm super old going to bed before midnight, but anyways, I thought this was a perfect example of something that I could try to automate with Python. So I went ahead and built out a script that basically what it did is it logged into our resident portal. It looked for reservations for the gym that were still available at midnight. If there were any that were available, it would go check against my calendar, my work calendar, and see if that was an open slot. If it was, it would go ahead and book it and then add it to my calendar and call it a day. Obviously, this is something that's not going to be applicable to you directly unless you have this exact situation. I'm obviously very fortunate to have access to a gym still and so forth. I appreciate the fact that our building is working on keeping it open. But I also wanted to make sure that I was able to use it. So I did this. So let me go to our resident portal. And first things first is I log in. So once I'm logged into this, you go to reserve amenity. And in this case, you reserve the fitness center. And once you get here, you're going to notice, if I scroll down, that literally everything is taken except for 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 1 a.m. on certain days. And obviously, I'm not going to go at 1 a.m. to the gym. So this is a situation we're in. Most of these are booked up in pretty much like seconds after midnight. So I figured this would be something that we could do with a program. Now, one of the things I want to talk about is the way I've actually gone about this is utilizing 2 ways to interact with Google Calendar, and in this case, our resident portal. Now, the first thing is a thing called Selenium. So in a browser, the basic idea is there's a user interface that humans will use to interact and be able to navigate. And what Selenium does is it allows you to programmatically interact with the browser as if you were a human from a programming language like Python. Now, I do need to give this disclaimer. Most websites that you will interact with will have some terms of service that will pretty much prohibit automated bots like this. So please keep that in mind, and using this is for the purposes of entertainment only and not for you to go break terms of services. So in this case, if I was to click on January 4th and then click the time slot drop down, it's going to give me only the time slots that are available. And so if I click on 12 a.m. to 1, continue, and then go to check this box and submit, I would go ahead and be able to reserve this time. Now, obviously, this is going to be constrained by my calendar. So let me go talk to you about the Google Calendar. If we go to Calendar, Google API, just Google that, there's going to be the first link here is a calendar API for Google. So Google pretty much has an API for everything. And the difference between utilizing an API, for those that don't know, application programming interface, is that this is a way for machines to most effectively and most efficiently interact with each other. It's a way for a machine to make a request to another application without all of the overhead of the graphics and user interface and experience that we're all used to. And what it does is it's going to request to either get a list of events or to add an event to the calendar. Similar things that you and I would do, it's just doing it in an automated programmatic way that is acceptable by Google. So this is actually part of Google's terms of service and is all within your rights. If I go over to guides here, and I'm interested in using Python as I am, which I really would recommend as a good first programming language. In here, it will give you the Python quick start. And the first thing is to make sure that you enable the Google Calendar API in your environment. So you have to log in. It's going to basically ask you, would you like to enable this or not? I've already done that, so I'm not going to do it here. And then it's going to walk you through installing the Google Client Library. So this is basically allowing you to interact with the Google API directly from Python with a set of objects, which we'll talk about in a second. And then finally, set up the sample. So you can literally grab this code and copy it and paste it into your own code, and you're pretty much well on your way to interacting automatically with Google. So it's very, very straightforward. A couple other things here. In Google's API, they have a reference guide. So if I wanted to interact with the events, which is what I want to do, and specifically the list endpoint, if I go here, it's going to give me the requests that I can make to this endpoint to get a list of events in a specific calendar. And every single one of these requests will have a list of parameters, things that you can pass to narrow down what you want in that list and how you want it returned back to you. So with that, let's go back over to this. So let me walk through this script from top to bottom. The purpose of this is just to give you a sense of how about 200 lines of code here has completely automated this for me. You're probably not going to be able to do this if this is your first programming experience, but I do want to give you guys a taste of exactly what Python looks like in a real project that I built out here. It's not the prettiest code for anybody that's actually a real programmer. I wrote this very quickly, so please don't rag on me in the comment section, or do. I mean, whatever. Anyways, from top to bottom here, the first thing we're doing is we're actually importing these packages that we want to use throughout this script. So in Python, one of the big benefits of programming is that you can utilize other people's work and import it. And this is basically allowing us to interact with Selenium, which we spoke about. It's that browser automation technology, and also the Google API directly. I'm also importing secrets. So obviously we need credentials to integrate into Google and to integrate into my resident portal. So these secrets are in another file here that I'm importing. And once we get down to line 35 here, this is really where I've created a class called resident portal. And this is where we get into a concept in programming called object-oriented programming. And it's really to be able to represent, to the best of our ability, any interaction with an object or attribute of an object. And it's literally an object. It could be this trash can, speaker, or a resident portal, right? It also has other functions here, such as login, get reservation options, book reservation, and quit. So this is all aspects of this object. And then if I go down to Google Calendar, it's the same idea. We initialize it. We can check my schedule, we can schedule an event, and each of these functions will take a certain amount of parameters that I can pass into it so that it can run dependent on those parameters and what they are. And then if I get down to the main function here, this is where I'm basically controlling the control flow of this procedure, if you will. These are not beginner topics by any means. If you're lost, don't worry about it. It's just to show you like a real life project and how I went about it. So basically what I'm doing is I'm calling that class above, the portal, resident portal above here. And in this resident portal, I'm going ahead and logging in, initializing it, logging in. And what this does is it actually will go into the browser and utilize something called an XPath, which is this right here, to identify what part of the browser experience I want to interact with. Now, this is actually really cool. If I go back to Chrome for a second, and I wanted to look at this submit button as an example. If I right click on it and click on inspect, utilizing the Chrome developer tools, if I go to copy, it'll give me the XPath right here. And I could basically just go back and forth here and now paste this into my code as needed. So this is the XPath for that button that I would want to interact with. Now, basically that XPath is the secret sauce to this. I'm copying this exact line of code in a bunch of other places later on. So that's what I'm doing here is I'm initializing and instantiating a portal session with my resident portal, going to this URL, logging in, Then I'm going to the Google Calendar and instantiating a work calendar that I want to interact with. Then I'm going to go look at my reservation options, get my reservation options for my portal session, and I'm passing in my gym reservation URL and the booking date that I want to get my reservation options for. And then I'm going to my work calendar and checking my schedule. I'm getting a list of all of the events that I have in my schedule, and that's being returned to this schedule variable that I'm going to use later. Now with the reservation options and the schedule, I'm iterating through all of the reservation options, and I'm checking against my preferred times. If it's in my preferred times and not in my schedule, then that works as an available time that I could book. So finally, we get to this last if statement here. If there are available times, go to the portal session and book the reservation, and then go ahead into my work calendar and schedule the event. And then after that, I quit the session and I'm done. And this is literally 200 lines of code. It took me, like I said, about 4 hours to build this, and a little bit of, of working through. But now I've completely automated my gym scheduling based off these constraints that I have right now. And I've solved a few big challenges in my life. You can type in Python into the terminal once it's installed, and then you're going to type in the name of the script you want to run. In my case, it's gym reservation, and then click enter. And what's cool about this too is that Selenium, the web driver, can be either stood up and you can see the interaction, or it can be headless.
What? What on earth are you talking about?
Like the Headless Horseman. Basically, you don't even know it's there. It's running as a background process, but it's still, that interaction is still taking place. So this is great if you wanted to offload this to some server in the cloud. So I'm gonna go ahead and kick this off. And now it's brought up this Chrome session, and I'm completely hands-free right now. Interacting with this is all programmatic. It's finding a slot that works. Like I said, I had 3 a.m. there as an example. And then it's going ahead and submitting the reservation. Now what's really, really cool about this is this now finally will get onto my Google Calendar. I'm definitely gonna have to blur most of this out. I don't want to do that, but if I scroll up, it's gone ahead and now booked the gym workout now for 3 a.m. In my Google Calendar as well. So that's pretty much it. I wanted to give you guys an example of a real life issue that I've solved with coding. And really, it's one of those things where even if you just learn a little bit, I promise you it's going to be worth your while. It's going to teach you how to learn about and think about things in a different way, and think critically about how to solve problems in ways that you've never thought about before. And for me, it was able to align a lot of things that I've been trying to build for myself this year that seem to be at odds with each other. For example, getting to bed early and making sure I'm able to go to the gym in my building. And yet coding was able to connect those dots for me so that I can have my cake and eat it too. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope it was educational for you. If you like more content like this, let me know in the comments. And please don't forget to subscribe if you have not already. And with that, appreciate it. Hope you have a great rest of your week, and I look forward to talking to you next week. Peace.